Hello, my name is Kevin Parks. I'm a fourth-generation resident of Delta County. In 1898, Amos and Fanny Morell moved from Effingham, Illinois, out to Colorado. Fanny had tuberculosis, so that they were going after a drier climate. So they took the narrow gauge train all the way up to Montrose, along with their 5 children and their school teacher to be James Parks, my grandfather. The 5 children of Amos and Fanny were Cora, also known as Coot, Alvy, also known as Allie, Rebecca, who was Bessie, and Laura May, who was Libby. And John Morell was John Morell. And James Parks was my grandfather, and he came from Illinois also. And he was to be the teacher of those children when they came on out to Colorado. From Montrose, they take a team and wagon to Olathe. And they spent time in Olathe exploring the county around it, Ridgeway, Telluride, Montrose, Delta, and they settled on the land of milk and honey, the North Fork Valley. So they took the wagon from Olathe to Midway, where they settled. And Midway is halfway between Hotchkiss and Paonia. The 3 eldest girls stayed at the Midway properties. Allie Wilkins, Bessie Sims, and Cora Morell all lived at those home sites. That big barn halfway between Hotchkiss and Paonia was built by my great uncle, Lyle Sims, and it's still standing and is a wonderful, picturesque spot. Grandma Cora lived there for 96 years. Libby was widowed, and she managed the Bross Hotel for many, many years. And John Morell created a wonderful ranch operation up Stevens Gulch. My great-grandfather Amos was instrumental in the Fire Mountain Canal, in the Delta County Telecom, and the Farmer's Mine, a coal mine north of Paonia. Cora and James met, fell in love, and were married in 1903. James taught the Morells and the Campbells at the Midway School, and his signature, along with my father and my uncle, is in the basement of the Midway School Event Center. So if you're there tasting some wine, you can go take a look at that. Cora and James lived in the trapper's cabin that is located at the house before they built a Sears house that came out on the train to 3700 Road, Hotchkiss, which is now the North Fork Historic Museum. They moved the Parks house into town in 1995, and my father, Ken Parks, was instrumental in getting that taken care of. It's located just by the Bowie Schoolhouse on the north side of town. The Trapper Cabin has been restored and is now registered as a historic building on our Centennial Farm located on 3700 Road. A Centennial Farm is defined as a farm owned by the same family for over 100 years. Campbell Ranches have been farming that property for over 65 years, so there's a close association between the Campbells, the Parkses, and the Morells. At that property, most recently, we designated 46 acres of the riverfront to be designated as a conservation easement. Cora, my grandma, as I said, married the school teacher in 1903, and she, once she had her Sears home, put up the other school teachers in her front bedroom for many, many years. There was a beautiful, ornate brass bed that the teachers slept on, and now my daughter, Hallie, has inherited that, so we've got it to carry on. James Parks continued teaching until he became the first State Farm agent on the western slope of Colorado and eastern Utah in 1927. James chose to be a State Farm agent since State Farm Insurance came from Illinois, which was a state that the Morells and the Parkses moved from in 1898. James and Cora had two sons. Ray, my uncle, was a wonderful musician, entertainer, and my middle name is Ray, named after him. And Kenneth Parks is my father. They grew up in a time of great community. Paonia was the town that they came to on Saturday night. It was a happening spot. The lights were on, the stores were open, people were circulating and communicating. It was wonderful. During this time, Ray and Ken had a band. Ray on the keyboards and Ken was on a bass fiddle. And they played all over the Western Slope during these communal times. Midway was an active locale with a school and the Midway Women's Club having events quite often. I've heard stories about the North Fork River being dammed up so that folks could come out, skate under the lights of the carbide generators south of my house. My father, Ken Parks, became the second State Farm agent in 1933. He married Ida Parks in 1941 and brought her from Grand Junction, where she was a school teacher, to live in Delta. Ken taught school in Crawford and Cedar Edge after graduating from Western State College until he became a full-time State Farm agent. He was a choral and a band instructor. He became a full-time State Farm agent after his father had died. Ken moved the State Farm agency to 126 East 5th Street in the 1940s to be closer to the county seat and have more opportunity to sell insurance. His mother, Cora, continued to live at the Midway property until she died at age 96. Some of my most memorable reflections come from Grandma Cora's Midway residence. Her Saturday dinners were over the top. Fried chicken that she'd raised, fed off with her grain, mashed potatoes, green beans, sweet potatoes, and dessert were all enjoyed whenever we got together. Grandma Cora had a television, and we enjoyed Lawrence Welk on ABC. Because Ken, my father, wouldn't buy a television until 1972 when I was a sophomore in high school. My siblings were so upset about that I got a television and they didn't. I guess there's benefits to being the youngest child. Each fall we'd butcher 2 hogs at the Midway property and the whole family would gather to process them and make soap. Grandma Cora had chickens, a Jersey and Guernsey cow for milk, a huge vegetable garden, and she subsisted as a widow quite comfortably. Cora never had central heating. She heated with lump coal and a pot-belly stove, and she hauled her water from the outdoor pump until she died. I graduated in 1974 from Delta High School and moved back in 1984 with my wife Jackie and our son Sam. I'm the 3rd generation State Farm agent of the Parks family in Delta County. I started in '84. And having been fortunate enough during those 10 years when I was away to travel, I would not live anywhere besides here in the North Fork. We live at the Valley Homestead that Cora and James lived at in the early 1900s. I've been a State Farm agent for 36 years. Jackie and I had a daughter, Hallie, born in 1987. We still enjoy the valley, which my dad called the land of milk and honey, when he was recruiting me to come back home and become a State Farm agent. Hallie and Johnny Albers moved back to Midway in May of 2020 during the pandemic. They're going to start their new home construction in March on the Valley Homestead where we live. Hallie will be the 5th generation of our family to live in the North Fork Valley. Johnny's working with State Farm and he's going to be the 4th generation of State Farm associates in the family. Living in this valley, we appreciate the location, where we live, the neighbors we have, the new folks we will meet, and we look forward to the future. Who knows how many Parkses will be here in the valley in the future.